Roots of the disaster, 1919 to 1939. World War II didn't start in 1939. Its roots go back to 1919 and the Hall of Mirrors in Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles was an imposed peace. Germany lost 13% of its territory and all its colonies. Its army was limited to 100,000 men. No air force, no tanks. The Allies assigned Germany sole guilt for the war and demanded 132 billion gold marks in reparations, which squeezed the economy. In Germany, this became the shame of Versailles. Hyperinflation hit in 1923. Mass unemployment followed after 1929. Street violence grew. In this crisis, a failed painter named Adolf Hitler rose to power. At the same time, the Great Depression pushed millions into poverty. Governments faltered, and extremist parties grew. Fascism took power in Italy, Nazism in Germany, and militarists in Japan. The League of Nations was weak. Sanctions did little. Appeasement bought aggressors time. Japan advanced in Asia. In Europe, Germany step by step broke treaty limits and moved toward war. By 1939, it took only one spark to ignite a new conflict. Blitzkrieg, 1939 to 1940. On September 1, 1939, Germany invaded Poland with a new style of war. Fast tank formations with air support. Blitzkrieg. Poland fell within 5 weeks. On September 17, the Soviet Union attacked from the east, and Poland was divided. Britain and France declared war on Germany, but the Western Front stayed quiet for months. The Phony War. In April 1940, Hitler struck Denmark and Norway. On May 10th, he attacked in the west. The main thrust went through the Ardennes, where the Allies least expected it. The Netherlands and Belgium fell. Within 6 weeks, so did France. On June 22, 1940, an armistice was signed in the same railcar where Germany had surrendered in 1918. Only Britain kept fighting. In the summer of 1940, the Battle of Britain began. The Luftwaffe failed to win control of the skies, and Hitler postponed the invasion indefinitely. The war goes global, 1940 to 1941. Italy joined Germany and attacked Greece, but failed, forcing Germany to step in. In April 1941, the Wehrmacht overran Yugoslavia and Greece. In North Africa, General Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, fought British forces. Then came Hitler's most costly mistake. On June 22, 1941, Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union, with more than 3 million soldiers, the largest campaign in history. At first it worked. Huge territories were taken. Leningrad was besieged. German forces reached the outskirts of Moscow, and millions of Soviet soldiers were captured. But in December 1941, the advance stalled outside Moscow. Temperatures fell below -30 degrees Celsius, -22 degrees Fahrenheit in places. The German army was unprepared, and long distances wrecked supply lines. The Wehrmacht suffered its first major defeat. Meanwhile, Japan sought resources and power in Asia. On December 7, 1941, Japan attacked the U.S. Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor. The United States entered the war, and British colonies in Asia were also attacked. Japan quickly took the Philippines, Malaya, Singapore, the Dutch East Indies, and many islands. 4 days later, Germany declared war on the United States. The conflict was now global. The Holocaust. Alongside the military war, Nazi Germany carried out a war of annihilation against Europe's Jews. What began with discrimination and stripping of rights ended in industrialized mass murder. In January 1942, senior Nazis met at Berlin's Wannsee. Their topic was the final solution, a plan to murder all European Jews. The Nazis established 5 killing centers in occupied Poland: Auschwitz-Birkenau, Treblinka, Sobibor, Belzec, and Chelmno, Kulmhof. People were deported in cattle cars, selected on arrival, killed in gas chambers, and burned in crematoria. Majdanek also had gas chambers and mass murder, and is often counted among extermination sites. About 6 million Jews were murdered, around 2/3 of Europe's Jewish population. Other victims included Sinti and Roma, people with disabilities, homosexuals, political opponents, and prisoners of war. The Holocaust is the darkest chapter in German history. The turning point, 1942 to 1943. In 1942, the war began to turn. That summer, German troops reached Stalingrad on the Volga. Hitler ordered the city taken at any cost. One of the war's bloodiest battles followed, street by street and house by house. In November 1942, the Red Army encircled Germany's 6th Army. Hitler forbade a breakout. On February 2, 1943, the last German units surrendered. About 91,000 soldiers were captured. Only roughly 5,000 to 6,000 survived captivity and returned years later. North Africa also turned. In October-November 1942, British General Bernard Montgomery defeated Rommel at El Alamein. In November, American and British forces landed in Morocco and Algeria, Operation Torch. The Axis was trapped, and in May 1943, around 250,000 German and Italian soldiers surrendered in Tunisia. In the Pacific, the United States seized the initiative at Midway and on Guadalcanal. The island-hopping strategy began. Take key islands, build airfields, and strike the next target. Naval and air power, code-breaking, and industrial strength worked together. The liberation of Europe, 1943 to 1944. In July 1943, Allied troops landed on Sicily. Italy could no longer hold. Mussolini was removed from power, and the new government signed an armistice. Germany then occupied northern and central Italy. The fighting became slow and brutal. The battles of Monte Cassino and Anzio showed how hard the Italian campaign was. On the Eastern Front, the Red Army drove the Wehrmacht back step by step. In the summer of 1944, Operation Bagration smashed Germany's Army Group Center. More than 400,000 German soldiers were killed or captured, an even greater disaster than Stalingrad. On June 6, 1944, D-Day, Operation Overlord, began. About 156,000 Allied troops landed on the Normandy beaches. After fierce fighting, the Allies broke through. Paris was liberated in late August, and the Western Allies moved toward Germany. On July 20, 1944, German officers led by Klaus Schenk, Graf von Stauffenberg, tried to assassinate Hitler. The attempt failed. Hitler survived, the conspirators were executed, and the war continued. The downfall, 1944 to 1945. In the winter of 1944 to 45, Hitler launched one last offensive in the West, the Battle of the Bulge in the Ardennes. After initial gains, the attack failed for lack of fuel and supplies. Soviet forces reached the Oder River. In January 1945, they liberated the Auschwitz extermination camp. In February, Churchill, Roosevelt, and Stalin met at Yalta to plan the post-war world. In March, American troops crossed the Rhine, including at Remagen. The Wehrmacht was finished. Boys and old men were thrown into hopeless battles. Those who refused were executed by drumhead courts-martial. On April 16, 1945, the Battle of Berlin began. 2 million Soviet soldiers stormed the city. Hitler hid in his bunker, giving orders to units that no longer existed. On April 30th, he committed suicide. Berlin surrendered on May 2nd. On May 8, 1945, Germany signed unconditional surrender, signed in Reims on May 7th and confirmed in Berlin on May 8th. The war in Europe was over. In the Pacific, Japan fought on until August, when the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima, August 6th, and Nagasaki, August 9th, and the Soviet Union entered the war against Japan from August 8th. Japan announced surrender in mid-August. On September 2, 1945, the Pacific War formally ended. The aftermath. The losses were staggering. Between 70 and 85 million people died. The Soviet Union alone lost about 27 million. Poland lost about 6 million, around 1/5 of its population. Germany lost more than 7 million, including roughly 2 million civilians. Entire cities were destroyed. Allied bombing flattened Hamburg, Dresden, and Cologne. In Japan, Tokyo, Hiroshima, and Nagasaki were devastated. Millions fled their homes. In Eastern Europe, Germans were expelled. About 12 million people lost their homeland. Across Europe, displaced persons, former forced laborers and concentration camp survivors, searched for a way home or a new start. After the war, the Allies occupied Germany and Japan. Germany was divided into two states in 1949. Major crimes were tried in Nuremberg and Tokyo. The Nuremberg trials brought top Nazi leaders to justice. 12 were sentenced to death. It was an attempt at justice, even though many perpetrators were never punished. The world after 1945 looked very different. Europe lay in ruins. The United Nations was founded to prevent another such war, October 24, 1945. The United States and the Soviet Union emerged as superpowers, and the Cold War began, shaping global politics for decades.